Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. In our top stories, at least 6 persons have died in a road accident in Bafoussam West region of the country. 21 others have sustained serious injuries and have been hospitalized in a hospital in Bafoussam, chief town of the west region of the country. And the accident occurred between a 30-seater bus and a heavy-duty truck. We shall be telling you more in this edition of the newscast. Plus, the Moyoka market remains deserted by traders. These, as council officials have gone ahead to seal several shops. They're blaming owners for not paying tax, and separatist fighters are said to have equally sent back some traders who showed up today back to their homes. We as well talk about other issues affecting the country, notably the security challenges faced by the two English-speaking regions of the country. Those were top stories. Once again, good evening and welcome to join us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. We begin with this accident that occurred in Bafoussam West region of the country. To say 6 persons lost their lives, 21 others sustained injuries and have been hospitalized in a hospital in Bafoussam. According to informational sources, the accident involves a 30-seater bus that collided with a heavy-duty truck. Both were coming from opposite directions. Immaculate Fogwe developed this story.
The journey of passengers who were on board a 70-seater bus, matriculated LT402GN, suddenly ends even before they could reach their final destination. The bus, which left Chang in the west region for Yaoundé, the central region, got involved in a fatal road accident at the Kenon neighborhood in Bafoussam West region. 6 persons died on the spot and 21 others are severely injured. The driver of the bus, Lonla Rodrigue, narrates the incident. While I was driving, I noticed that a truck was overtaking on the continuous line. When I noticed he was coming towards my direction, I immediately struggled to escape, but it was too late. Apart from human losses, material damages were equally incurred. The walls of the house found beside the road was completely damaged. Luckily enough, no one was in the parlor at the time. The vehicles on their part incurred serious mechanical damages. At about 11 p.m., we heard a loud sound, so we immediately came out of the house to check what happened. It was then that the truck has destroyed the walls of our house. Luckily enough, no one was in the parlor at the time of the accident. The 6 corpses have been laid at the Bafoussam Regional Hospital mortuary, while the 21 injured victims are currently receiving treatment. The non-respect of the highway code has been blamed for this unfortunate incident.
32 bags of elements of the Longkak Gendarmerie Brigade in Yaoundé, central region of the country, have apprehended some suspected to alert traffickers of animals, and they were arrested in Brickery neighborhoods, that is in the central region of the country, with bags full of the animal skins and scales of pangolin ready for sale in neighboring country, Nigeria. Smanjikan Gabriel has more.
32 bags of pangolin scales and 3 leopard skins have been seized from a trafficker at the Briqueterie neighborhood in Yaoundé. The scales were found in the room of the suspect, thanks to information that security forces received. Thanks to our network of informants in collaboration with our colleague of the forestry and non-governmental organizations, we caught the main suspect and we seized what you are seeing right now. The pangolin scales and leopard skins, which were destined to be sold in Nigeria, could have given the suspect a lot of money. The items are so expensive. Our technical service evaluated it at 200 million francs CFA. The divisional officer of Yaoundé 1, who was at the presentation of these seized items, called on Cameroonians to respect species protected by the country. These species are not protected just for fantasy. They are integrally protected because their lives matter to the nation. The 24-year-old man, his mother, and an accomplice are helping gendarme officers at the Lonkat Brigade in further investigation.
We take you to Mbanga Pongo, a locality in Douala that witnessed a plane crash years back. Many have been expecting developments of this locality, but today it is still enclaved and access to that neighborhood remains precarious. Charles Ekume was there. He now paints the situation in this report.
A commercial motorbike stuck in a pool of muddy water due to the swampy nature of the streets. We are in Banga Pongo in the Douala 3 subdivision. This area has been classified by meteorologists as one of the zones with risk of experiencing floods. An inhabitant says the marshy nature of the roads have contributed to damaging vehicles.
Even by service because you enter water and get spoil the engine of the bike and some cars.
Other inhabitants describe the rainy season as being a nightmare to the people of Banga Pongo because the area is usually flooded, thus leading to the destruction of personal property.
When it's rain, the water just stands and everywhere is water. When the rain enters inside our boutique, so we just have to remove everything. Most of things that the rain spoil, we just have to remove it and throw.
Water enter inside the house, many place. You see, we are just put the chairs are spoiled. All things then also that we don't have things in the house is fine. Don't the rain and fall there, we are just suffer.
Furthermore, they also say activities are usually on a standstill, especially for school children who are unable to make it to school.
In school, when we fall, we have too much difficulty to go to school because everywhere there's water. You cannot carry a normal shoe to enter water and go to school. You have a rainboat. Now you carry a rainboat, even if the rainboat water to enter inside. I'm just begging the government to see us, to help us to build roads because many children, when rain falls, many children cannot go to school. Some sink inside the water.
The inhabitants of Banga Pongo are calling on concerned officials to rescue them from underdevelopment by constructing good roads and drainage patterns so as to spare their neighborhoods from being a zone in risk of experiencing floods and inundations.
We take you to another risk zone that's in Lokbaba in the Douala 3 subdivision, where the population are now living in fear as heavy rains now hits that locality. The area they're occupying is they are afraid it could lead to a possible landslide that could claim lives of several locals that have been having sleepless nights and are calling on competent authorities to see into their situation. Details with Malak Glory.
It is not a touristic site, but a ravine that has been caused by heavy storms and floods. It is in the neighborhood of Lokbaba in the Douala 3 subdivision. A crater of about 20 meters deep is increasing by the day. Some of the inhabitants have deserted the area because of the dangers ahead. Some houses in the area have been swallowed up by this ravine that has continued increasing in size. It is a permanent threat described by some inhabitants as a death trap.
Les déviations d'eau d'une société derrière appelée Boakam qui a fait une clôture qui a subi un effondrement.
It is the deviation of water from the factory Boakam, which led to a small gutter. The gutter increased with time, and today we are faced with a ravine. The building you see behind us was inhabited until when the occupants had to abandon the place for fear of the unknown.
La structure entièrement pour se déporter ailleurs.
Moments of trouble for the inhabitants when it rains, as their houses are flooded. Soil from the ravine get into their buildings. Some houses were even buried with part of the earth during the last rains.
The
whole of that house was covered with soil. We let her remove the soil from it. If there is little rain, it will enter into the houses. There is water everywhere. I actually face the greatest part of the floods here. If you come back when it is raining, you will witness it yourself. The ravine has made a way for garbage to leave its deposit into the houses of the locals. This displeasing situation has led to a conflict between the people living down the valley and those living at the top of the hill.
Nous souffrons là-bas en bas. Quand vous versez comme ça descend là-bas chez nous. Vous-même, vous voyez que c'est normal. Ils ont qu'à passer là-bas sur la route centrale. Les enfants partent déposer les choses là-bas. Ils ont qu'à pas porter.
As they believe, the trash is deposited by those living at the top of the hill.
Et en dessous de ça, on est comme ça en train de souffrir pour un problème. Il y a encore les gens qui profitent de ça pour verser les ordures.
We are suffering from an issue, while there are people taking advantage of the situation to throw their waste. They will not put the waste in bags for Izakam to carry them away. They dump the waste in the hole, and when it rains, the runoffs carry the waste to our houses. The inhabitants urge the municipal and administrative authorities to save them from this calamity. The National Agency for Climatology announced heavy rains in the city of Douala in the days ahead. No measures have been taken to secure the lives of the inhabitants, thereby leaving them in fear. Liberon Jomo, Theon Chunke, and Mala Glory for Equinoxe Television.
The Muyoka market in the southwest region of the country has remained deserted for over 24 hours. Council officials sealed several shops because their owners failed to pay taxes. They equally say very few persons showed up today to go about their business activities, but they were later scared by non-state armed individuals. Samanjikan gave reports.
The market in Moyoka subdivision of the Southwest region still remains closed with no business activities. It's day 2 since council officials sealed several stores because the owners have not paid their dues for several months. Sources say council officials closed these stores 4 a.m. on Wednesday. They were accompanied by security forces heavily armed. Some traders who showed up this Thursday were allegedly driven back by some armed civilians. Moyoka remains a red zone since the crisis began in the 2 English-speaking regions of Cameroon.
And linked with the socio-political crisis in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country, that led to the arrest of some Anglophones who protested demanding for equitable distribution of resources. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on governments, especially that of Cameroon, to release prisoners of conscience. According to the U.S. Human Rights Commission, prisoners of conscience are persons in prison for the peaceful expression of their political, religious, or other consensuously held beliefs, or for their identity, even though they have neither used nor advocated violence. Prisoners of conscience exist even though international standards protect the human rights and fundamental freedoms of all individuals worldwide. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights reaffirms equal rights for men and women and states that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms it sets forth without distinction of any kind. And artists, bloggers, community activists, dissidents, journalists, human rights activists, lawyers, labor leaders, teachers, religious leaders, and members of religious communities are amongst the prisoners of conscience found around the world today. And it should be noted that Mancho, BBC, and other detainees of the Anglophone crisis who were arrested, that was in line with the Anglophone crisis, are still detained in Kundenge, in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. The result that was in 2016 demanding for a better management of resources or equitable distribution of resources in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country, as well as the 8 French-speaking regions. We talk about this protest demonstration of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement opposition political party that has been banned in Yaoundé by the divisional officer Haruna Nyanji Mbabtu. He banned the protest or demonstration of the CRM political party, citing COVID-19 reasons, responding to a declaration of interests of the organized protest addressed to him by a senior official of the opposition party. The divisional officer says such acts would encourage the spread of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic the country is still grappling with and provoke public disorder. Hence, it is prohibited the Cameroon Renaissance Movement opposition political party in the declaration dated July 16 makes known its intention to move around the streets of Yaoundé Sunday, July 25th, in what it has called a mega Republican protest. The protest, according to the document, is meant to promote living together, call for peace in the 2 English-speaking regions rocked by the Anglophone crisis for close to 5 years now, show solidarity to the population of the far north suffering in the hands of Boko Haram Islamist sect and its unending attacks, and push for the promotion of national integration. And time to talk about the reaction of the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Grégoire Owona, who has called on Cameroonians to rise up against violence. That was on his Twitter account, and according to him, this is a threat to Cameroon. On his Twitter account, he writes, "Let us mobilize against violence in all its forms. Let us mobilize against hate. Let us mobilize against ethno-fascism. The nation is threatened by it." Onto something else, difficult access to finance remains a major problem hindering the development or growth of small and medium-sized enterprises in the country. Banks talk of a high liquidity, but there are several obstacles preventing the flow of the cash from the financial institutions to the small and medium-sized enterprises. Financial experts attribute the problem to the high interest rates and collateral security requested by banks. Many of the small and medium-sized enterprises are unable to afford these requirements. To bridge the gap between the banks and small and medium-sized enterprises, the Chamber of Commerce has signed a memorandum of understanding with the African Guarantee and Economic Cooperation Fund, better known by its French acronym FAGAS. With the collaboration of the Chamber of Commerce, the financial institution is expected to ease the procedure of obtaining loans from the banks by small and medium-sized enterprises. For greater details, listen to this extract of Christophe Eken, President of the Chamber of Commerce, and Basil Chakunte, Special Advisor of the Africa Guarantee and Economic Fund, FAGAS. The signing of that agreement was yesterday, and it paved the way for activities marking the 100 years of existence of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Craft of Cameroon.
In our country is the financing of the small and medium enterprise. That is a big problem. Today, FAGAS is bring just a guarantee. So, if the small and medium enterprise want to get credit about the classic bank, the FAGAS will bring the guarantee, and the Chamber of Commerce will make what we can call that a bridge between the bank and the FAGAS to bring all the guarantee, to bring all the file. The file must be complete. That is what we are going to do today. That is our mission. How we will do it.
FAGAS, as a guarantor, as a financial institution, what we do, we work with the bank in order to boost the financial project in Cameroon. Naturally, we are working as well with the Chamber of Commerce, as the President just said, in order to make sure that we address the issue of financing in this country. Working together with the Chamber of Commerce, with the banks and so on, with guarantor as FAGAS, I'm quite sure we are moving forward in the
From north to south, east to west, from the main cities to the hinterlands, inadequate electric energy supply is one of the major problems faced by Cameroonians. In some areas of the country, inhabitants have never had electricity, while in others, citizens go without electric energy for several months. Recurrent power failure is almost a daily problem in nearby all towns and villages across the country. This is why public and private stakeholders were meeting with the Minister of Energy and Water Resources here in Douala today to discuss this major hindrance to development and economic activities. The stakeholders examined stumbling blocks at different stages of the electricity production and distribution chain in view of providing lasting solutions. For greater details, listen to this extract of what the Energy Minister Gaston Elundwe Somba and the President of the Cameroon Employers Union, Celestine Tawamba, told our reporters.
Transportation in terms of productions, and they must be confident, they must know that things will be improved in the next few days in terms of quality of the services. So there is very, very important need in terms of supply, and they must be sure that government is working very hard to supply them.
We try to make the diagnostic now to find a way to solve the problem and take the measure to be together with the Prime Minister and all of the people who work in this sector to have the business in this sector. So we are very, very satisfied after this meeting.
We asked one of the energy producers what should be done to solve the energy problem in Cameroon. This is what he told us. Listen.
I'm the General Manager of Global Cameroon and the Bamba Power Development Company. So we'll talk on behalf of the Global Group. We are operating 2 power plants in Cameroon, the 86 megawatt HFO fired power plant and the 216 megawatt gas-fired power plant in Kribi. So we are representing 20% of the electricity consumed in Cameroon. As I was saying, our responsibility is to make sure that actually our plants are available So we are guaranteeing at least 90% availability for all our plants. So Dibamba today is at 96% availability. Would suggest that the government, let's say, put some incentive to that. For example, the pricing, how much these industries are going to pay if they, their consumption is replaced in the course of the day. It should be cheaper than when they consume it at 6. So this is really the first. And really, we were also talking about investment. So what is being discussed is investment in production, distribution, transmission. But when we're talking about production, we agreed that the interconnected grid of the South is fully, let's say, capacity is enough as of today. But the concern is really for the North as well as the Eastern region. So for the North, there are a lot of opportunities for development of solar energy, for example. And what is being said here is that, yes, this is needed, but investors are talking about incentives. Are we going to receive some incentives from the government in terms of tax and other aspects? The one difficulty we're talking about is also land access. If you want to deploy a solar project, you have a lot to do. You need a lot of land. So you need the government to help you getting this land and taking it, in order for you to deploy your project. So this help, this assistance from the government is really critical. That's why I would say we're talking about it here. We talk also about Nashigal, which is a massive project coming online, let's say 2033, 2024. We need to make sure that the energy produced there will find the demand. So how to unlock the demand has also been discussed here.
And on to this health news, a total of 303,050 doses of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine have arrived Cameroon. They arrived on Wednesday via the Simalin International Airport in Yaoundé and constitute gift from the United States government to help Cameroon fight the pandemic. The vaccines are yet to be distributed in various vaccination centers in the country. This comes to add to the already existing COVID-19 vaccines in Cameroon, AstraZeneca from Britain and Sinopharm from China. Johnson & Johnson vaccines are from the United States of America. Up next, Talking Point. Good evening once again. You're welcome to Talking Points. Today we having as guest Dr. Budzi Raymond. He is a historian and educationist. He is from the conflict-hit Northwest region. Good evening, Dr. Budzi Raymond, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aze Innocent. It's good to be here again.
Yeah, of course, you always be good to have you on this platform.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
So, how is the Northwest region faring? You're just from there.
The Northwest has been on the news for the past 5 years. It has remained the same. Uneasy, calm rains, but there is relatively a general improvement in living and the situation of the crisis. However, we think that there is still much that needs to be done for the situation to normalize as it used to be before we had it some 5 years ago. The Northwest is still very much unstable.
Just like the Southwest region, and the hopes that things should be done the right way for normalcy to actually return. You are an educationist. You schooled, of course, in Bambili, that's in the Tuba subdivision, Mesan division of the Northwest region.
That's right.
And we've heard of several attacks by non-state armed individuals, attacking students, scaring them from pursuing their fundamental rights to education. We've heard of several confrontations between these armed men and the military. Today, what is the situation when it comes to schooling in Bambili?
Yeah, that has really been disturbing, as you indicated, with the general situation in Northwest. Bambili, the seat of education in the Northwest, has been particularly very hit by the crisis. Of course, since 2017, 2018, and particularly in 2019, the situation in Bambili was really precarious. We can even say today that there has been some improvement. It was, before now, it was very difficult to pass a day without getting news of gunshot, news of kidnappings, news of harassment of students, and even lecturers, and things like that. The situation has only very slightly improved. You know, I want to say that it has really been difficult studying in Bambili under such circumstances, and that is why students, lecturers, and even the entire university community have been taking measures to adapt to the situation. I've been trying to be resilient. I've been trying to take coping strategies very seriously in order to see that they are able to cope with the situation. But the truth remains that it has truly been very difficult to study in an environment where instability, gunshot, and all of that has been the order of the day.
And you said there's a slight improvement on the security situation and encouraging students to school. Tell us some of the measures that have been taken by the administrations. I'm talking about the school administration and also the administrative authorities in the Northwest region around that seat of education.
Yeah, without representing anybody's opinion, this is very independent observation from my position. I want to observe that as much as the situation has been bad, the university community have tried to take measures to ensure that students adapt with this. Apart from sensitization, apart from working with security officers, they've also been other measures like, of course, introducing and of course encouraging online learning, which has been able to help students to learn from the comfort of their rooms and from wherever they are found, just as to cope with the security situation. Of course, a lot of sensitization, a lot of awareness messages has been going on, and students have been conscious of the situation on the ground. And this has been one of the reasons why we've had some improvement, some slight improvement. Of course, the improvement we talk about is just being relative, because we're comparing it to the situation of 2018, 2019, when there were days that even the Bamenda-Bambili road used to be blocked, where students and lecturers used to be ensnared along that stretch of the road. But today, we've not had much of that, but the truth has remained that the instability continues in Bambili, though mild in relation to what we had 2 or 3 years ago.
Can we say the quality of education matters here? Has it been has it been affected as a result of this armed conflict? We're talking about the online learning. We know of the epileptic internet situation and equally power supply.
Very seriously, the quality of education has been affected. I think sometimes in future we'll be able to evaluate this better, but the point is the quality of education. The online platforms that have been created for students to learn cannot be as effective as these face-to-face meetings with students, and that challenge has been there. Students may not take it seriously, or they may actually want to take it seriously, but because of some of the challenges you have raised, epileptic power supply, which is very rife in Bamenda generally and Bambili in particular, as well as the internet hold-ups and all of that, have a lot to do to influence the quality of education that students receive within this dispensation.
You talk about an evaluation of the quality of education they have being evaluated tomorrow. How?
Of course, in future, you know, the output of those who are coming out today will be evaluated on the field. And I think that it will be very glaring that
like in the job market?
Yes, of course, in the job market and wherever they would find themselves, we'll be able to see that something definitely went wrong within these 5 years. This is to say that the crisis has been dragging on for too long. It is affecting everybody negatively.
Will it be like it's a waste going to school then, or maybe attending some of these lectures because you will not be productive tomorrow?
No, not necessarily. Perhaps it's better than
maybe
not
your
going
employer will kick you out because you are not productive.
It's better than not going at all. I want to think that what they are getting yes, as low as it may be, is better, far better than not going at all and not achieving anything completely. But the point is, there is need for more to be done for the situation to improve, for students to learn again as they are supposed to learn, as they have been learning before the crisis erupted.
Okay, we still in the context of the socio-political impasse. You certainly came across this information concerning the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who has called on world governments to release prisoners of conscience, and that's the fight for a betterness of the society. We have the case study Cameroon. We have people like Mancho, BBC, and others who have been detained in line with the Anglophone crisis. We know Mancho, BBC, and others. That was in 2016. They started protesting against poor management of resources, the way the Northwest region was being managed by the government's delegates.
Yeah, of course, I followed that with keen attention. The United Nations Secretary General is talking in the spirit of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. He's talking in the spirit of the UN Charter itself. And of course, he's talking also in the spirit of the African Declaration of Human and People's Rights. You know, all of these conventions, international conventions, in one way or the other, talk about the defense of the rights of people and individuals. And to say that we can have people in the 21st century who are in prison who are prisoners of consciences, even in our nation, it can be very undemocratic. To a country that strives to improve its democracy, we want to think that people should be free. People should be free to even think differently. But this must not be taken without the caution. The caution that as much as we think that the rights of the people to be free to think differently should be protected, we should know that it could include the rights of people with different sexual orientation, which the laws of the nation does not support. So I want to think it's a very slippery issue altogether, and to say that as much as people may have different political beliefs, people may have different religious beliefs, and clamor to be allowed to freely think differently, the context within which they operate must be considered. In the sense that there are institutions, there are other regulations that may be limiting some of these rights, even at national levels. And that is why if today we have homosexuals, for instance, if we have gays come out to say, oh, we are suffering in Cameroon because of our sexual orientation, we should know that if we are strictly implementing, yes, the rule to respect people's beliefs, we have to listen to them. So within the context of our country, we know that other regulations come in to, of course, regulate the practice and the beliefs of people such that it aligns with national rules and, of course, institutions that we have put in place ourselves.
Should we then say the government should revise a step into a pit by considering some of these political actors or prisoners of conscience, by releasing them and finding reason that they are protesting maybe for a better Cameroon in order for its emergence to be attained in 2035?
It goes without saying, because even the preamble of our constitution upholds all these international conventions that we mentioned: the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the United Nations Charter, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The preamble of our constitution uphold all these institutions and these conventions. I want to think that it goes without saying that as much as the government has pledged in the constitution, or has pledged to uphold the terms of the constitution, yes, they should respect the rights of people to think different, especially political rights. When we talk of religious beliefs, we've not really had people suffering within our context from their religious thoughts. But we've had people particularly suffer because of their political opinions. This is unheard of in the 21st century.
Should we say the government is considering their beliefs as taboo?
Of course, which we are saying that it is against the same constitution the government upholds, because the constitution argues, and in that constitution the government pledges to uphold all these international conventions. We think that we need to be very deliberate in the measures we take towards promoting democracy in our country. Our country should be seen to be that which upholds democratic principles, basic democratic principles, and among them we have freedom to think differently. And this can only be upheld if people cultivate this virtue of tolerance. The government and people in government, people in the opposition, people from different ethnicities must cultivate this virtue of tolerance. People must think differently, but we have to grow to a point where we can tolerate people's different thought and allow them to come to the table so that we try to find common grounds to forge the nation building project ahead.
Because we failed to consider beliefs of Cameroonians, he has plunged us into violence, into chaotic situations, and we have several cases of violence recorded all over Cameroon. So we have the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Gregoire Owona, who is one of those Cameroonians who feels violence should be castigated, violence should be abolished in the country, so that the country should remain stable, united and indivisible. He calls on Cameroonians to mobilize against violence. Who in Cameroon is behind the violent mask?
Yeah, thank you very much. Peace is not a wish. Sorry. Peace is constructed, it is built deliberately and very intentionally by every segment of the society. We don't declare peace. Peace is not a declaration. Peace is built by the involvement of every segment of the society, the government, the citizens, and just everybody. Every hands on deck to build peace. So to declare that we should avoid violence, there is something more to be done rather than that declaration. I think that there is something definitely that the government does that pushes Cameroonians, that radicalizes Cameroonians. Yes, I want to think he's talking on the heels of what is happening, or what happened recently in Switzerland with the public protest against the presence of the head of state, of course, and so on. So we are saying that we should go beyond to find out what is pushing Cameroonians to become violent, what is making them to be taken to the streets, what is radicalizing Cameroonians. Why is it that at the slightest opportunity they want to manifest violence? When we would have answered those questions, we would be getting close to what Cameroonians truly want. I don't think that it is enough to declare, it is enough to be wishing that, oh, we don't want violence, we don't want peace. Of course, we do not end at that sermon. We should go beyond to manifestations that are happening here and there.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Bodi Raymond.
Thank you very much, Mr.
It's been